Hey, Madison kids, welcome to Sunday School. We're glad you joined us. We have got another lesson from Daniel. We've been in the book of Daniel for a long time now, and this week we are going to read about Daniel interpreting a vision for a new king. And I just want to give a review of what we've talked about Daniel so far. Daniel is an Israelite from God's chosen people, but when he was very young, he was taken as a prisoner from Israel to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar when Babylon invaded Israel. And Daniel was a prisoner together with his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego obeyed God on what they ate when they were training to be in the king's service, and they became strong and wise, and the king made them important. Daniel even had the ability to interpret dreams. And that came to be really important as King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that nobody could interpret but Daniel. And when Daniel told him what it meant, it saved all the king's wise men, and it also made Daniel very important in the king's service. And then last week we talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's friends, who refused to bow down to the giant idol that King Nebuchadnezzar had built, and how they obeyed God instead of obeying the bad thing that King Nebuchadnezzar wanted to do, and God was with them even when they were thrown into the fiery furnace. God didn't let them be burned up. He protected them, and that made them even more important in King Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom when he saw how God rescued them. So now, this week we have a story about Daniel, but many years have passed since all those stories. And Daniel is now an older man in this story, and he's still in the service to the kingdom of Babylon, but there's a new king. It's not Nebuchadnezzar anymore. This new king is named Belshazzar. Belshazzar is very similar to the Babylonian name that Daniel was given. Daniel is Belteshazzar, his Babylonian name, but that's not it. This one is without a T. This new king is named Belshazzar. Uh, when he came into power, he decided to host a great banquet for thousands of his leaders. During the feast, King Belshazzar had his servants bring out the gold and silver goblets that his father, King Nebuchadnezzar, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. Do you remember that? In the very first lesson, we talked about King Nebuchadnezzar invading Jerusalem and taking all the things out of the temple. Well, King Belshazzar, his son, when he threw this banquet, decided to use all those things that they had stolen from God's temple in Jerusalem for his banquet to entertain his guests. As the king and his nobles drank from these sacred goblets, they praised false gods, and God doesn't like that. Now, I need to introduce you to my recording partners today, to my friends here, Jack and Henry Nielsen, who are going to help me tell this Bible story. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay. Henry, will you tell me about this picture? What's going on in this picture?
They're jumping.
Yeah, they're having like a party, so they're jumping around. Which one is King Belshazzar, do you think?
The one with the golden cup. The one with the golden cup.
Yeah, I think you're right. That looks like King Belshazzar, and those are all of his friends. They're having a party, and what are they doing wrong at this party? Do you remember?
Praising false gods.
Praising false gods. Yep. And what do they have in their hands?
The cups from the Jerusalem and the temple.
Yeah, they have the cups from the temple in Jerusalem, and I think that makes God angry. So Jack's going to help me tell the story here as we look at our next picture. Mm-hmm.
And suddenly a human hand appeared, and one figure began to write on the wall, right in front of everyone. At the feast, as the king Belshazzar watched, he began to shake in fear. The king called for his wise men and said, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means, I will give them rich and power. But the wise man could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. This made the king even more terrified.
Wow. So they were at this party and a magical hand appeared out of nowhere and started writing things on the wall. Henry, what would you do if a magical hand appeared and started writing things on your wall?
If they said to read it, I would try to.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty hard though because I mean, you can read some things but not everything, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And I definitely wouldn't be able to read that.
right. And you know what? The King Belshazzar, he couldn't read it either. And that kind of made him scared that this magical hand was writing something on the wall that he couldn't even read. And
But God could read it because God is the one writing it.
You think God's the one? I think you're right about that. That's probably right.
Yeah, I think God's writing that.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about how these people look in the picture. What kind of emotion are they experiencing?
Terrified.
They're afraid.
Yeah, afraid.
Yeah. Okay. So hearing the commotion, the queen came into the room. And she said, "Don't be alarmed. There's a man who can help you. He was trusted by King Nebuchadnezzar because of his great insight and wisdom. He was trusted so much that King Nebuchadnezzar put him in charge of all Babylon's wise men." What do you think this man's name is that the king is going to tell Belshazzar about? Who's a wise man? Yeah, Daniel. Our friend Daniel. Yeah. So, the queen tells King Belshazzar, "Hey, there's a wise man who can interpret dreams, and he did it for your father. His name is Daniel. If you bring him here, he'll be able to tell you what this writing on the wall means." When Daniel appeared before King Belshazzar, the king told him, "None of my wise men can read the writing on the wall and tell me what it means. But if you can, I will give you riches and honor beyond your wildest dreams." Daniel answered the king, "You can keep your gifts and give them to someone else, but I will still read the writing for you and tell you what it means." Okay, so King Belshazzar wants Daniel to tell him what the writing means, and he offers him rewards and prizes. And things like riches and honor. Okay. What kind of things would you want from King Belshazzar if you were going to interpret his dream?
Nothing.
What would you ask for?
Nothing. To have the whole kingdom worship God.
Okay.
Yeah, I would want that too.
I might ask for, I don't know, fishing boat.
Coffee.
Coffee. Yeah, I might ask for coffee. That'd be pretty nice. Lifetime supply of coffee. But Belshazzar is gonna offer Daniel all these riches and honor, and Daniel says, "You can keep it. Not interested in that, but I will interpret this writing for you and tell you what it means." And Jack's gonna help me out here.
Daniel told King Belshazzar, "God gave your precision, King Nebuchadnezzar, absolute power, glory, and splendor. Because of this, all the nations of the earth feared him. He did as he pleased to help or hurt anyone he chose. But Nebuchadnezzar became proud and arrogant. So God stripped him of his throne and his power. Only after this did King Nebuchadnezzar acknowledge that God alone is king over all the earth.
So before Daniel interprets this writing for King Belshazzar, Daniel tells King Belshazzar about the story of his dad, King Nebuchadnezzar, and that it was God who gave King Nebuchadnezzar power. Who's the person in this picture, Henry? That's not King Belshazzar from the party. Who is
Nebuchadnezzar.
It's Nebuchadnezzar. That's right, from our other lessons that we learned before. Now, he's gone by the time this story is happening, but Daniel's telling him about what happened to him. And Daniel mentions a story that we didn't get to talk about in our Bible lessons because this curriculum kind of skips over chapter 4 of Daniel. And in chapter 4 of Daniel, something kind of funny happens. Are you ready to see a funny picture about what happens in Daniel 4?
Sure.
Yeah.
Before King Belshazzar's party, this is what happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. Ready? Look at him. Look at King Nebuchadnezzar. He's crawling around like a wild man. You see his statue back there in the back that he built that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wouldn't bow down to?
Yeah.
Now, in this story, King Nebuchadnezzar had gotten really proud and prideful about how big and great and wonderful his kingdom was and how many riches he had. And Daniel interpreted a dream for him that said that he was going to be humbled by God for 7 times.
I actually read this in the Bible.
Uh-huh. And it's in Daniel chapter 4, right before the story we're talking about today. And Nebuchadnezzar was humbled, and he ate grass.
Like
and
an ox.
Yeah, and he slept outside. And he went crazy until his fingernails grew out and his hair was all crazy. And he went kind of wild until he would acknowledge that all power and authority belongs to God and not to him. But we're not talking about King Nebuchadnezzar because King Nebuchadnezzar eventually admitted, yeah, God is the one who's powerful and in control, but not King Belshazzar, his son. King Belshazzar was full of pride, and King Belshazzar was never humbled like King Nebuchadnezzar, and so this is why this hand appeared and started writing on the wall. So let's go back to what Daniel is saying to King Belshazzar, as we have here in this picture. Daniel talking to King Belshazzar. He says, "But you, King Belshazzar," Daniel continued, "have not humbled yourself, even though you knew all this. Instead, you have become proud and honored yourself above God. When you brought out the goblets from God's temple, you drank from them and praised false gods who cannot see or hear or understand. In all of this, you did not honor God or his hand in your life. Because of this, God sent you this hand and wrote the inscription." "My king," Daniel said, "this inscription says, 'Many, many, tekel, parson.'" Crazy. Say that, Henry.
Many tackle parson.
Many, many, tekel, parson. Many means numbered. God has numbered your days and brought them to an end, Daniel told Belshazzar. Tekel means weighed. You have been weighed on the scales and you have been found wanting. Parson means divided. Your kingdom is divided and will be given to the Medes and the Persians, 2 other empires or nations. Just as the king had promised, Daniel was dressed in wealth that very night. So the hand that appeared on the wall that wrote these words wrote, "Many, many, tekel, parson." That means measured, weighed, and divided. So God was sending a message to Belshazzar through the writing on the wall and through Daniel that Belshazzar had been measured and weighed and that he wasn't as great as he thought he was. In fact, he wasn't great at all, and God was going to divide his kingdom and take it away from him. So Belshazzar made Daniel important just like he said he would, and then that very night, the very night that Daniel interpreted this vision for King Belshazzar was killed. And the kingdom of Babylon was overtaken by the Medo-Persian Empire.
Oh, that was dark.
Under Cyrus and Darius. And Darius is going to become really important in our story about Daniel. So what we learn from this story is that pride is a sin. Belshazzar was really proud, and that made God angry at him, and it led to bad things happening to Belshazzar. And Belshazzar's father, Nebuchadnezzar, had learned to not be prideful when God made him crazy and crawl over the woods. But Belshazzar hadn't learned that lesson, and so God punishes him for his pridefulness, for not acknowledging that all of his power and everything good that we have comes from God. And we can't brag about it because it's God who has made all the good things happen to us in our lives. Now, I have some questions that I think you guys can help me answer, okay? It's like a quiz. I'm going to put them on the screen, okay? 3 questions. Jack and Henry, what appeared in front of everyone at the feast?
A
A hand
hand.
writing on the wall.
Handwriting on the wall.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. A human hand appeared in front of everyone at the feast. And that would be crazy. It would be scary. How did everybody feel when it appeared? Afraid. Ah!
Afraid.
Oh my goodness. Yep. Who told everyone to be calm and seek Daniel? Do you remember?
The queen.
The queen. Yeah.
Jinx, jinx, jinx.
I call him the
That's right. The queen told everyone to be calm and seek Daniel. And finally, why did God send the hand and write the inscription on the wall for King Belshazzar?
So,
Why did God do that?
so that you can know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So he told Belshazzar what was going to happen through the message and through Daniel. Do you remember what was Belshazzar doing wrong?
Not believing God.
And worshiping false gods,
Yeah.
like idols.
Mm-hmm. But he was also very proud. And he was boasting and celebrating his own power and accomplishments instead of acknowledging that all those things come from God, instead of being humble. Okay, this week for homework, I think that we should make some many Tekel Parson signs, right? God wanted to tell Belshazzar that he should be humble and that all of his greatness came from God. And we need to remember that too sometimes, because sometimes we can forget. We think that we're pretty good at stuff, like Jack, you think you're pretty good at science, right? And Henry, you think you're pretty good at hoverboarding. Yeah. And you think that all these things we do because we're really awesome, we're really good. But you know what? Everything good in our life comes
From God. Even stores.
And we need to remember that.
Like if they didn't believe in God and God wasn't alive, then we wouldn't have stores and we wouldn't have food.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't even be alive.
Right.
Yeah, because God made us.
Yep. And so a lot of times it can be helpful for us to remember that all the good things that we have come from God and not because we're really good or really powerful. So we should have our own many Tekel Parson signs. So that's what I want you guys to do at home this week. I want maybe your parents can help you make a sign that says many Tekel Parson and hang it on your wall to remember that all the good things we have come from our God in heaven who loves us.
And then have my parents help me make 3.
3 many Tekel Parson signs?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot of writing. Okay, you can find, like if you want to know how to spell many Tekel Parson, just go to our kids' website, or if you got a Sunday school packet delivered to your house, it's written on the instruction sheet there, so you know what to write. Now, we have a memory verse today. That's from Daniel 5:22. It says this, "And you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this." Okay, even though Belshazzar knew the story of Nebuchadnezzar, he did not humble his heart. He was prideful. And that was sin. That's why God sent that hand to write on his wall and had Daniel interpret it, and then that very night, Belshazzar died and his kingdom was taken away. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to close with a prayer. So pray with me, boys. Dear God, thank you for all the blessings you bestow upon us. Help us to seek your wisdom as we live to achieve the plans you have for our lives. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for coming to Sunday School this week. We had so much fun telling you the story of Daniel. There is one more story in our Daniel series left, one that I bet you've heard before that is really exciting to tell you about. And thank you, Jack and Henry, for helping me record the lesson today. You want to tell everybody goodbye?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you guys soon.